Hey folks, Cadenza here, coming at you live from the editing room. A content warning before we begin. This episode contains instances of strong violence, kidnapping, torture, creepy supernatural stuff, and also a jump scare, if you can believe it. I'll have an exact timestamp for that last one in a comment below the video, so be sure to check that before you watch if you're sensitive to that sort of thing. Having said that, we now return to our regularly scheduled visual novel narration video. I hope you enjoy. We limp our way back to my sedan, and after helping Leo into the back seat, we make our way back to the motel. God, you're heavier than I remember. Only where it counts. A wry smile is visible on his muzzle, the battered wolf clearly still loopy from all the blows to the head. Or at least, that's what I hope the explanation is. He keeps squeezing my side as I struggle to keep him upright. With my free hand, I dig around in my pocket and search for the Echo Motel keycard. The task is made all the more difficult by the appalling ministrations of Leo, who I keep having to bat away. For fuck's sake, Leo, I'm genuinely pissed at you. We almost died, and you blew our chance to find Carl easily. I don't even know how I'm gonna begin to explain this all to the cops. Leo makes a dismissive noise. Pfft, I'll handle it. You don't gotta worry. I prop Leo up against the wall, giving him an incredulous look. Does he not even process what would have happened if Micah and I hadn't stepped in to help him? Leo, you just pissed off some kind of trailer park drug kingpin who now knows exactly who you are. That should concern the hell out of you. Nah. There's a distant look in his eyes. Before I have time to further chastise what an idiot he's being, I hear a voice call out from behind me. Hey! Jenna's holding a small plastic bag with the words "Thank you" printed on it over and over again in bold red lettering. Chase, where were you? What's going on? Leo's expression goes a little more flat, his tail unmoving behind him. Jenna? The wolf greets her curtly, eliciting a perplexed face from the fox. I leave for 20 minutes, and of course Leo is now beaten and shirtless. She gives me a stern look. What happened? I let out a sigh, pinching the tip of my nose before letting my paw flop down to my side. Leo tried to interrogate the Tetanus Alley crew by himself. And I was doing fine until that squeaky-voiced fat-ass showed up. Brian, I clarify. Oh, shit. She reaches into her pocket, taking her own keycard and sliding it into the door. Come on, let's get you inside. There's some basic medical supplies in the bathroom. I'll see what I can scrounge up. I think he's got a concussion? Yeah, I don't need to tell you that you shouldn't let him fall asleep. I'm right here, you know. You can talk to me. I would if I think it would do any good, but you obviously don't listen to anything we say, as evidenced by this latest stunt. God, Leo, why are you so stupid? You're an adult. Jenna pushes the door open and I help Leo inside. I'm trying not to look directly at him, but judging by the tenseness of his muscles, I can tell he is definitely not digging Jenna's scolding. I walk Leo over to one of the beds and help him sit down, carefully so he doesn't smoosh his own tail. Easy now, big guy. The wolf palpably softens at those words, and I think I catch a slight, sad smile pass toward my direction. Despite all his idiocy, we did just survive near death together. He pats my lower back some, just as Jenna shuts the door behind us. I should probably text TJ. He's doing those sports medicine courses, so he might be able to help us out a bit. He left to continue the search with Flynn after you didn't show up. Though honestly, I think we should drive him to the urgent care down in Peyton. I look up to Leo, anticipating his response before he even speaks. I'm fine. Leo, I said I'm fine, yeah? You shouldn't be babying over me while Carl's still out there. You're right. We shouldn't be having to do this at all. Jenna walks past us both with a glowering look of maternal disappointment before heading into the bathroom. She does drop the bag of food next to us on the bed, though. Ordinarily, I'd be concerned about getting grease on the covers, but considering the circumstances... I pull out a styrofoam container from the bag and pop it open. Inside are 2 grilled cheese sandwiches with toast, eggs, and bacon pushed off to the side. It looks kinda haphazardly put together, but my grumbling stomach doesn't mind. I hand Leo a grilled cheese and take some bacon from myself. You feeling dizzy? Any sudden sharp head pains? Just some throbbing. but that's about par for the course when I'm around you. He grins for a flicker of a second before taking a huge bite of the sandwich. I can't help but stare at him wide-eyed, my face burning. It's not that I'm super offended by the flirting or anything, but now, of all the times to do it? Leo swallows down a mouthful of bread and cheese. Judging by his expression, he doesn't seem to be a big fan of the taste. Sorry, just getting sleepy. I reach up, clutching his shoulder. Hey, come on, don't pass out on us. You know you can't do that now. Jenna returns with some hydrogen peroxide, gauze, and what looks like a bottle of acetaminophen. I sent out a message to the group chat letting them know what's going on. The signal was being kind of weird for a second, but it said sent. Jenna sits down beside the wolf with her can of disinfectant, to which Leo visibly recoils. I can do it, just give it to me. The Fennec's brow furrows, and she actually pulls back the can. No, that is not how you're going to treat me right now. Like you treat me like shit, yeah? What? I know you've been talking ill of me behind my back, trying to keep Chase away. Jenna stares dumbfounded at Leo. I am absolutely baffled by your priorities right now. I'm going to assume this is the head trauma speaking. So what if it is? You know it's true. Leo shifts his gaze to me. She has, hasn't she? I sigh. I really wasn't prepared to deal with this confrontation right now. I probably should have spent more time with you, to make sure you didn't do anything like you just did. No, Chase, this is not your fault. The sooner Leo realizes he's the one making mistakes, the sooner we can rally and figure out what we're going to do next. For Carl? Remember him? The person we're actually trying to find? I wince, having agreed with the first part of what Jenna said, but it's definitely gone a step too far. Jenna, we all are concerned about Carl. I take the antiseptic spray and begin shaking the can before spritzing it on a few of Leo's wounds. The wolf barely even reacts. His pain tolerance always was pretty heavy growing up. He'd win pretty much every game of slap hands or punch you punch me that Flynn or Carl devised. I used to find that sort of toughness attractive. Guys, let's focus. Jenna holds up the flat of her palm toward me, speaking up with a curt tone. Chase, you don't really believe Leo is doing this out of the genuine goodness of his heart, right? That he has some deep compassion for Carl? Hell, I've spoken with Carl online these past few years. Leo basically stopped talking to him the moment you left for college. That is 3 whole years of not giving a damn. Leo's jowls pull back along the corner of his maw for a moment, before he reaches up and clutches his temple. That's real hypocritical of you to say. Don't. Jenna looks up at the ceiling, her usual cool and collected demeanor gone. It's clear Leo's actions have pushed her past the point of calm understanding. Don't? Don't what? Don't stop you from laying into me while you're guilty of the same? Yeah, you left everyone behind, didn't you? Jenna looks stunned for a moment before her brow furrows once again. Oh yes, Leo. A completely unjustified decision. Unrelenting neglect, abuse, and traumatic influence is no reason to distance oneself from the sacred nuclear family unit. It's not often that Jenna outright expressed what went on in her tiny house growing up. We all figured she wasn't keen on representing herself as someone to be pitied, so we generally didn't pry. Her bringing this up now definitely means this is a touchier subject, and Leo knows this. After this outburst in your latest behavior, is it any wonder that we don't reach out to you much anymore? Leo's unfocused gaze shifts from Jenna to me, and back again. Chase talks to me. I squeeze Leo's shoulder. Guys, Carl. Let's focus on Carl. What are we gonna do about him? I flash Jenna a pleading look. Yeah, he still messages me from time to time. I squeeze harder. He says he misses me, and that he can't wait to see me again. That he misses us being together. What? Jenna peers at Leo incredulously, her arms folded across her chest. When no one says anything in response, she unfolds her arms, her expression softening some. Wait, seriously? Her attention shifts to me. You've been texting Leo that you want to get back together this whole time? No, not really. I mean, I barely text him. It's always late at night. Leo speaks with a droll monotone. and my phone flashes and it's you. You bring up all the old times we messed around, and how you want to do it again. You get kinda intense, too. Like last time, when you talked about, you know, how you wanted me in you again. Leo, for fuck's sake! My face absolutely burns. I want to just throw my paw over his muzzle and shut him up. How could he be bringing this up at a time like this? Or bringing it up at all? Jenna's brow is raised high now. Before she can say anything, Leo speaks again, gesturing forward with jittery movements. I'm not fucking lying, yeah? I can show you the texts. I saved them. You got rid of them the next morning. Every time. A dull throb pounds within my head. The intrusive thoughts is pointed as Jenna's gaze, which is very much aimed at me now. They made you feel guilty. Out of everything. That's what you feel guilty about?
Okay, wow. Neither of you told me any of this.
I practically want to scream now. Carl! Let's focus on Carl! Anything to get the spotlight off me. Well, it really wasn't pertinent. It was just a couple times over the span of 3 years.
Chase, it is. At least somewhat.
She hesitates a second, trying to find some gentle phrasing as she shifts her weight from one foot to the other.
Not the nitty-gritty details, of course, unless we were all particularly inebriated.
She looks between the two of us.
At the very least, it partially explains Leo's behavior. Though I'm not saying it justifies it.
There you go again. I'm right here and you're still talking right over me. He hunches forward some.
You're injured, Leo. Plus, your words and actions have been exceptionally irrational lately, so forgive me if you aren't given a spot at the grown-up table.
Leo ignores her, beginning to mumble. At first, I was confused. Why were you acting like this? Trying to take away my chance to make things right. You've always been cruel, but never this bad, yeah?
Cruel?
Jenna lets out an amused but exhausted noise, pinching the bridge of her muzzle.
Are you implying that I'm stealing Chase from you? As if he were an object to be conquered and taken? That is a regressive...
Leo starts talking in that same deadpan voice before Jenna finishes. You know what you're doing.
Attitude towards someone you claim you understand so deeply.
Jenna continues speaking even throughout the wolf's words. But hey, that's just who you are. Leo, please relax. Stop talking. I begin wrapping gauze around some of the disinfected wounds. It's hard to tell and difficult to focus with what's going on, but some of these might require some stitches. His large head turns to look at me, but his pupils are hidden behind his half-open eyelids. Just close my eyes and fall asleep. Wait, no, don't do that! And then you're right there with me again. Jenna's nostrils flare, exasperated.
I'm about to smack him awake.
I frown. Don't do that either. You came down to Echo to surprise me the other week. I thought that was really nice of you. Showed you cared. I have no clue what he's talking about. For the past few weeks, I've been cramming for midterms and streaming old movies with Vincent in my dorm room. For a moment, I think Jenna gives me a slightly accusatory look, but doesn't say anything. Instead, she grabs a few strips of bacon before walking to the other side of the room and checking her phone.
Okay, the signal is completely messed up. My bars are bouncing up and down like they're on a trampoline.
She holds her phone higher, squinting at it. Meanwhile, I'm trying to keep Leo upright as I wrap a particularly nasty-looking gash on his arm. He must have cut himself when he fell down. Maybe a tetanus shot is in order when we get to the doctor, too. You were kind of thin, which was cute, but you should eat more. I was gonna have Pops cook you those hamburgers with the jalapeno ketchup you liked. He's not really making much sense at the moment, but at least the focus isn't on me anymore. I have a feeling I'm going to get a bit of a scolding from Jenna later, though. I always thought Leo's dad's burgers were kinda iffy, but I never wanted to be rude. The goatee, though. You shaving it was kinda funny. You were so proud of that thing. But it was like... you were doing everything you could to be cute for me. Jenna's frowning deeply at her phone now. Whether it's because of what Leo said or something on her screen is unclear. Without looking, Leo brings up a giant paw and squeezes the end of my chin. I quickly push it away, and he seems surprised for a moment when he feels the untrimmed scruff. Huh. Is that really you, Chase? I catch Jenna peering pointedly at the wolf before glancing back to her phone.
I'm thinking maybe we should start driving to the clinic now. I'm not even sure if the others got my texts, and the stupid phone can barely buffer the messaging app. I've tried both it and the standard SMS.
I reach into my pocket and pull out my phone. The spot where the bar is indicating service and Wi-Fi aren't there anymore. At least at first. I think I see them flicker back on for a second before disappearing again. I've never seen it do this before. Yeah, my Wi-Fi is messed up too. I press my thumb over the power button. I guess I'll try turning it off and on again? Jenna frowns.
Then I suppose there's no point in checking my laptop.
She lets out a long exhale before shoving her phone back into her pocket and looking at me.
Before I give up entirely, let me try your phone real quick. You've always had the best signal. That is, unless you've got something on there you'd rather not show me.
Her tone is idle and nonchalant, but her words are definitely meant as a jab. Hey, come on. I let go of Leo, giving the Finnick my best annoyed look. I can explain all this later, but it's just been bad timing with... And then Leo goes still. I turn to look into his eyes and notice they're still open. But there's something behind him. Hey. Wh- I step back. Leo mumbles something inaudible. The figure behind him stands still, its body blurred and dark, like the light of the room won't touch it. It's like staring in a funhouse mirror, except the thing in front of me isn't following my movements as I back further and further away. There's a gasp from the corner of the room.
Chase!
Jenna's voice comes after a few seconds of silence.
What is that?
She speaks in a half yell, half whisper. I don't know. I respond without thinking. The figure still stares at me. As I back away, I notice that its socketed eyes follow me without it ever moving its head. My foot catches the edge of a suitcase and I have to quickly grab the dresser so I don't tumble over. I suck in a sharp breath between my teeth, my heart pounding. No reaction. 10 seconds have passed now and this thing is still here. Leo stirs, but only somewhat. His eyes roll back into his head, then he turns slightly toward the direction of the doppelganger. Only then does it begin to move as well. It rests a shadowy, furred paw on Leo's own. Don't touch him! I wince as the words leave my mouth, spoken without thought.
Chase, don't!
Why? Its voice is garbled and sounds nothing like me. Like a clipped soundbite from an old cassette tape. Just... don't hurt him! Leo lays there, conked out and helpless. It's such a contrast from the fuming predator striking at Brian I saw just 30 minutes ago. You've hurt him plenty. No. I try to swallow, finding my throat dry. Leo's lips move again, and this time I can hear him clearly. I love you. Love you too. He speaks in my voice this time, crystal clear with no distortion. The affectation is slightly perturbed, and I realize that's how I sounded when I responded to Leo earlier. Its shadowy visage fades into the surroundings, until it's completely gone. I can feel the goosebumps beneath my fur subside, and breathing is somehow easier all of a sudden, the air less thick. Leo sits up, still in a sleepy daze. He clutches at his paw, and feeling nothing there, a confused and sad expression crosses his white face. I finally look over to Jenna, who's backed against the bathroom door. She rubs her eyes, seemingly looking on in disbelief. Neither of us say anything, trying to process what the hell that was. It felt like a dream, but one I could actually feel. The room itself had a sort of ozone-y smell to it, but that's completely gone now. Surprisingly, Leo was the first to speak. "Thank you, Chase," he says, still looking at his paw. What? It's all I can say. One of Leo's ears flick and he turns his attention back to me. "For being here for me." Jenna walks up, touching the space where the doppelganger was moments ago.
What the fuck?
She reaches down, grasping her wrists and checking her pulse, pinching herself a few times while she's at it.
Was I drugged? You saw that too, right, Chase?
I nod, trying to speak but only a croaking sound coming from my throat at first. I cough, then try again. I saw it. I think that was the thing from my dream.
Oh no. No. No!
Jenna turns, walking back toward the bathroom door.
God, Chase, don't say that!
Thought clearly appears to unnerve her. I'm sorry, but that was real.
There has to be an explanation for whatever that was. I'm about ready to start looking for hidden cameras here.
I glance down at my suitcase and spot the familiar orange hardbox container that I keep my camera equipment in. If only I'd gotten whatever that was on film. I exhale, noticing that my legs are still shaking. It's all so familiar. We should probably get out of here.
Agreed. I'm going to grab my stuff and pack your trunk.
You think we should leave?
Yes. I need to get back to Pueblo and take a few mental health days. We'll finish packing, pick up TJ, and drop Leo off at the clinic. His dad can take him home later.
Leo picks at his freshly wrapped bandages. Why did it touch him? I need to find Carl. Jenna says nothing to Leo's insistence, the Fennec shoving her dirty clothes into a garbage bag. Leo, I don't really know what more we can do. I'll handle it, and then you can come back. His red eyes meet mine for the first time in a while, and I'm struck by the level of compassion in them. For a second, it reminds me of the best moments of our relationship. With my heart still thudding in my ears and my legs weak, I managed to force a smile toward the dazed wolf. Right, of course. Doctor first, though. I'm about ready to check myself in, too. He cants his head, peering at me curiously. I'll find Carl, don't worry. There's a knocking on the window. Awkward taps followed by a crooning falsetto voice.
Carl? I found Carl!
It makes Jenna and I jump, both of us freezing in place. Who's there? Leo asks sleepily.
It's me, Micah!
More knocking, this time a little harder. Micah? Leo blinks, suddenly seeming more awake. He clutches the end of the bed, pushing himself up to his feet. The wolf is a little wobbly, his tail swaying behind him as he tries to keep his balance.
Yeah, it's me! Open the door!
There's something off about his voice. I don't think it's him. Leo steps over toward the window and draws the curtains before I can tell him to stop. The familiar outline of the bat's massive ears pokes up over the bottom of the sill. He's crouched down, like he's afraid to be seen. Jenna steps up beside me, watching on from a distance. Micah lifts his head a little, and I notice he has this strange expression on his face, like he's not fully awake. There's also something attached to the scruff of his neck. The bat's face is snout squarely against the window, blood squirting from his nose and coating both the pane and his face. Fuck!
Oh god. Leo, get back!
Micah slumps aside, falling out of sight as the figure who is making the voices reveals himself. Brian. The bear rams open the door, bits of splintered wood from the frame showering the carpet. Leo, get back! Leo turns to face him just as something metal strikes across his face. I don't hear the impact, but Leo crumbles just the same. He points the thing at me now, and I realize quickly it's a gun. He smiles at me for a second, approaching me next. I try to back up, but there's nowhere to run. He grabs me by the shirt and I feel my body swing around.
Don't you fucking...
The coyote latches onto my shoulder, yanking me back. Something hard smacks into my skull and I feel my mind rattle. I lurch away, essentially butt-bumping the coyote as my ears ring from the prior blow. TJ's still on the ground, crying and covered in booze as the bullies stand around him. My movements go sluggish, and it's like I've become a zombie, shambling toward the door as my vision blurs. Is this what being knocked out feels like? I clench my fists and keep up my pace, trying to blink the blurriness away. Eventually, I reach the entrance. Carl! Leo! As I reach the outside, my knees lock and I drop to the concrete. The impact rattles my bones as I catch myself with my wrists, just barely managing to avoid falling directly on my muzzle. I take a deep breath. I'm still conscious. At least, half conscious. I continue crawling, trying to ignore the throbbing pain. Carl! Shouting now, my voice sounds foreign to me. Shrill, childlike, pathetic, and increasingly hoarse. Leo! My voice shouldn't be this croaky. I've barely talked today. I'm in the middle of the road now. Where's Carl? I should get out of here before a car comes. I pull myself along the asphalt, feeling my skin scrape beneath my fur. I want to stand, but I'll probably just fall again. And so I keep crawling, rolling into what seems like some sort of detention basin. I stare up at the sky, fighting the sudden fatigue and gritting my teeth through the pain. At first I think it's blood that got into my eyes, but upon rubbing them I realize that isn't the case. The sky is different, like someone slapped one of those colored gel matte filters over it. What the hell? I rub my eyes again, attempting to focus. I can't stay here. TJ is in deep shit. Those idiots, those assholes. Sucking in a sharp breath through my teeth, I rise to a stand, praying my knees don't lock up again. Find Carl. Find Leo. I stumble out of the detention basin, feeling packed soil beneath my feet. A dirt road. Looking behind me, I realized I must have crawled farther than I thought. Parsons looks over a mile away? That can't be right. I see a van ahead. It looks rusted and old, but there's a light on inside. I step stiff-leggedly down the road a ways, reaching the bend where the vehicle sits. The same redness that the sky is tinted with pulsates from the interior. I try to speak, but no words come from my throat. It's like a dream. I want to do the rational thing and announce myself, but I can't. I move closer, peering into the dusty back window. Inside the window is another window, and in that window a little red dot in the corner, flashing on and off. In the window within a window, there is a writhing, flashes of fur contorted and undulating in constant, restless motion. Something is trying to hold it in place. I hear a clap and a cry. The clapping continues, louder now, rhythmic yet singular applause. "This is what you want," says the voice that cried. I stare, slowly finding the will to speak. "No, I need to help my friends. Do you know where they are?" The voice shifts some, more urgent. "We heard gunfire coming from the town. It's real bad." "Gunfire? I didn't hear anything. Please, help me find my friends." "We can't find them all now. We need to go. They're lost." "No, they're not. I'll keep looking. I'll keep looking myself." "You're just going in circles." I feel tears well within my eyes, a lump in my throat containing a choked sob. "Please." The van's back doors open. I'm standing too close and it pushes me onto my back. The red light is gone now, replaced by darkness, shifting shadows within. I see them now. Tarantulas, their 8 legs fuzzed with white and rust-colored stripes. They're on me with haste, 2 of them, one on each of my arms. They bite so hard, so quickly, I can't yell. They pull and tug at me, another pair at my legs. Pulled up and into the van, my body stretched upon a squishy something that begins to sink against my arms and legs. There's no more light, and I stare paralyzed at what I think is the ceiling of the van in the pitch blackness. It feels like restraints are binding me in place. I try to adjust my eyes to the darkness, but everything seems blurry and unclear. My head throbs like a heartbeat, the pangs of pain unrelenting. My fur bristles. Where did the spiders go? Breathing has become more difficult, as if the oxygen in the van was running out. I feel the veins in my neck bulge as I try to grasp for larger breaths, but my body is not my own. Lights seem to pop as the ringing in my ears intensifies. Something is above me, I can sense it. There's a garbled muttering coming forth from it, as if spoken through a poorly tuned AM radio. It sounds like me. You knocked him out? I swear I barely touched him, man. Fucking pants on. Dude, just go. Leo, go before he wakes up. I'll see you. Party? It goes quiet. Then, after a few more seconds, Chase. 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 The voice changes. This time, the voice is throbbing within my head. Have you ever killed anyone? Jeez. I hear my name once again and lean forward, only to find my head pounding and something metal around my neck. Jeez. Again, my name is spoken, the voice a coarse rasp that sounds somewhat familiar. I blink several times, trying to get the blurriness to leave my eyes. They feel puffy, like I'd been crying a lot. Sure enough, as I touch my cheeks, I can feel wet stains. I must have wept while I was out. Finally, my vision clears enough that I can get a read on my surroundings. It's some kind of trailer, with trash and stained clothing scattered about everywhere. Most of it's beer bottles and old TV dinner packages, with a few stacks of vintage science magazines and newspapers along the back wall. Dishes and junk are piled high along the length of the counter, and it smells like cigarette smoke. Brian must have brought me here. Maybe this is his place? As the reality of the situation sinks in, I quickly try to stand up, but the sudden tugging on my throat pulls me back down. I clutch at it, and realize it's some kind of metal collar which is keeping me pinned to the wood-paneled wall. Jeez. This time, I turn and crane my head back to identify the source. Carl. My heart leaps, but stops cold once I notice the position he's in. The ram's on some kind of table, with bindings around his neck, wrists, and fetlocks. The ram cranes his neck in what looks like a painful fashion to look at me. His eyes are puffy and bloodshot, far beyond his usual pink-hued, drug-induced haze. He's been crying. A lot. Carl! I exclaim, my voice a half-whisper, half-shout. What's going on? Are you really Chase? His voice is weak, cracking with each enunciation. I can see the veins in the ram's neck bulge through his thin fur when he tries to speak. What? Of course it's really me? Did Brian nab you too? Shakily, the ram nods his head, his horns making clacking noises against the wood table. It's all a fucking nightmare, dude. I can't tell what's real anymore. Everything's fuzzy. He squeezes his fists, then wrenches his wrists back, trying to worm his way out of the bindings. He keeps coming by and tightening the wrap around my neck. Until, I can only get a tiny bit of air. After a few minutes, I start to see lights popping, and everything goes all dark and grainy. Over and over again. It's at that point I notice there's something hanging above him on the ceiling. A mirror. Ornately framed with gold-colored trim and pinned up with rusty metal stakes. It's so starkly fancy and out of place, considering the rest of the trashy interior. Jesus. I strain against the collar around my neck, trying to get a better look at my own bindings. It's hard to see, but this collar looks like it's bolted to the wood-paneled walls at both sides of my neck. Haphazardly, too, as it jiggles whenever I shift too hard. At the same time, the edges of the collar are not exactly smooth. I feel like if I yanked too quickly, the metal would cut into my own neck. Are the cops coming? I just want to go home, man. I share the sentiment, though right now I'm just trying to get my bearings. The edges of my forehead where Ryan hit me throbs with pain every couple of seconds. There's no air conditioning in here either, and I can't help but feel like I'm sitting in a hot car that smells like a dumpster. There's a pungent aroma of body odor mixed with something kind of like rotting fruit. Every breath I take just brings more of that scent into me, until I can practically taste it on my tongue. I don't know. I finally respond. Carl's heart visibly sinks, his eyes darting around the room before finally settling on something to my right. Leo? I blink and delicately try to turn my head to peer beside me. Crumpled on the floor and bound in a similar type of bondage to my own is Leo, still unconscious. His lip is split and a little bit of blood has pooled onto the gray carpet. Fortunately, he's still breathing, that big chest of his rising and falling in a slow rhythm. It looks like he took that strike earlier, mainly on his muzzle. Hopefully that means his head itself didn't take too much of the brunt, which undoubtedly would worsen the hell out of his concussion. Leo, wake up. I hear him grunt softly, like I had just disturbed him from a pleasant nap. His eyes already seem like they're half open, so whether he's truly sleeping right now isn't clear. Stretching out, I can just barely manage to nudge him with the tip of my tail. Leo, come on! Another soft groan. He looks beat up, Carl rasps. Yeah, Brian beat him pretty bad. Twice. Oh. Orange-tinted sunlight seeps in from between the slats of the closed blinds across the room. It must still be daytime out, but just barely. I wonder why Jenna isn't here. Maybe she got away? Outside, there's a pronounced puttering noise drawing closer. It vibrates the room we're in slightly, and there's the faint noise of oldies music that carries on along with it. A car. Maybe an old pickup truck. Carl goes quiet, listening as well. Next, voices. They sound terse, argumentative.
Going after your fucking sister?
One says, higher pitched and pained. They brought it on themselves. Clint. Leo was right. He was involved. Fucker. What do you think he's gonna do to him? Jeremy's voice comes through less annoyed than the other two. He sounds almost afraid.
The same thing he did to Keith, you mangy fuck!
That high-pitched voice, it's Micah. Well, fuck, at least he's alive. You don't know that!
Yeah, shut the fuck up, Micah. Don't disrespect him with this sort of conspiracy shit now. You done screwed several pooches, and I ain't covering for you. You don't know shit.
I can hear another car pull up, this one with a much quieter engine. Carl visibly tenses, seemingly recognizing the sound. It's him, dude. The car door slams and the voices silence.
Hello there. Bit of a day, huh?
The silence continues for a while until Brian speaks again.
After you.
Clint makes a little irk, and the door to the room we're in opens. The ringtail enters, his composure far more timid than I'm used to. He blinks when he sees Leo and I bound to the wall, staring at the two of us wordlessly.
Go on, what was it that you were gonna tell me?
Brian enters in after him, the hulking bear having to duck to fit through the doorway. Carl quickly closes his eyes, trying to pretend he's asleep. The bear's focus remains entirely upon Clint, with Clint looking like he's practically withering under his gaze.
I think Duke said he was going to be here in a couple minutes. Apparently folk are gathering at Town Hall wondering what's going on.
The bear glances back over his shoulder, then extends an arm out through the doorway, grabbing something. I struggle to turn my head enough to see what.
Let go!
Jenna's tone is cold, completely curt despite the circumstances. Fortunately, she doesn't look too beaten up beyond her fur being a little tousled. Brian's holding her by her arm, and tightly, judging by the wince on her face. Her stony demeanor visibly fades as she sees the three of us bound up.
This is barbaric.
Brian ignores her comments, dragging her across the stained carpet to an old radiator in the corner. With some errant chain, he gets to work tying her to it. She seems to be getting spared the neck choker treatment.
You mentioned there were others with them? The Catboy and the mayor's cocksucking nephew, right?
TJ and Flynn, yeah.
Flynn, right. I know him. He's the one with the big bottom?
Clint rubs his scabbed arms, looking anywhere but at Brian. I don't know. He quickly tries to shift the direction of the conversation. Duke was talking about them. Do you want us to bring him in too? In case they got some incriminating stuff on their phones?
That works for me. Hey, little Jerry, what you doing out there? Bring in the last one.
Sure enough, Jeremy sheepishly enters the room with his paw on Micah's shoulder. The bat is trembling, walking with a limp and a swollen nose. Jeremy looks directly at Jenna for a moment, a flicker of shock on his face at seeing her and the rest of us in such a sorry state.
You guys are such shit. It's finally happening and you all are gonna turn on me just like that? Succumb to it?
Hey man, you're the one who started trying to kill our boss with a wrench. That sounds an awful lot like succumbing to it to me.
He killed Keith.
Dude, no he didn't. You're just hallucinating. Brian lets out an indiscernible noise from the other side of the room, finishing up some bindings around Jenna's ankles. Brian seems like he's in his element, as if this whole kidnapping business is about as strenuous as a trip for groceries. However, the mention of Keith does elicit a visible tensing of the bear.
Don't appreciate that kind of disingenuous assertion.
Look, you just need to chill out here. Smoke some weed or something. That's the trick to make it go away, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. We're all gonna get real high and write it out, little fellas.
Brian smiles, showcasing his broken teeth.
You ain't got nothing to fret over.
The rotund Finnick pulls out a phone from his pocket, one that looks a lot like the burner Micah showed me earlier. I still can't get a hold of Heather. We gotta look for her too, man. Clint, who had been unusually quiet, snaps to attention as he realizes Jeremy is talking to him. Huh? We'll check her pa's place then.
Oh, you're going there? Take Carl with you. I might need the rack. Only been a few days and I've almost got him trained already.
Trained?
Shouldn't be too much of a flight risk.
I look at Carl, who's still trying to pretend he's asleep. He's not doing a very good job, as I can still see his legs shaking. Not that I'd be able to do any better in his position. Clint, without a word, moves to the table and unfastens each strap and buckle as if he were personally familiar with each. He pulls out the ram's soiled and slightly bloody tank top. Come on, he mutters. Carl complies, his fetlocks nearly buckling beneath him as his hooves touch the ground for the first time in a long while. He doesn't dare look at the rest of us, keeping his gaze down.
Good boy,
Brian rumbles, grinning to himself. Carl flinches. Clint pulls something that shimmers in the faint light out of the back of his pants, and it takes me a minute to realize it's a gun. He presses the metal of the barrel against the ram's spine, his lanky finger hovering over the trigger. As I see the ringtail step around and push open the door, I notice that Carl's not the only one shaking now. Clint's own hand shivers fiercely, like any second he might accidentally squeeze his finger back. I try not to make any sudden noises, keeping my already strained breath shallow. This is so fucked. The two shuffle out without further word. Jeremy moves to follow them, but hesitates for a moment, looking back at Jenna.
Jazz, just wait this out, yeah?
Just go!
Jenna seethes, her words like ice. It's as if any more of the fat Phoenix rationalizing would make her physically ill. Jeremy thins his lips, standing there a bit Gormless-like. He finally reaches down into his pocket and withdraws a joint and a lighter. Whatever he's got, it's potent, and I can smell it from all the way across the room. He ducks his head down, turning to follow Clint and Carl out to the truck.
See ya, guys.
Eat shit, bitch!
Jeremy makes a concerted effort not to react to the bat's sputtered jab, and disappears out the doorway. Brian makes his way over to the door and gently closes it behind them. Slowly, he turns his head back towards us. A light smile crosses his muzzle. As his dark eyes meet Micah's own, his grin widens.
Hey, Micah.
Micah opens his mouth to speak, but nothing comes out. The bat just gawps wordlessly as Brian walks over and socks him in the chest. The little bat doubles over, nearly cracking his skull on the edge of the kitchen countertop on his way down. Jenna gasps.
See, one would think your prissy, God-loving folks would have taught you some proper manners when around guests.
The bear squints down at the crumpled bat, inspecting him to see if he did any real serious damage.
At the very least, Keith shoulda.
Brian leans down, expecting some sort of profanity-laden quip from the bat, but he's met with silence. Micah's furred form heaves, his maw stretching open against the dirty linoleum in a dry retch. The bear continues to watch over him like this, nudging him gently with his foot. No one says anything, and I can see Jenna doing her best not to draw attention to herself. It's a quiet malaise which throbs like my pulse, pounding against the too tight restraints. Finally, he speaks.
That's right, faggot.
The bear begins to rifle through one of the mildewy kitchen cabinets and withdraw a pair of fuzzy white handcuffs. They're the kind of thing you'd see at one of those edgy mall gift shops for bondage play. Regardless of their intended use, I can see the glint of metal beneath the fur. They seem pretty solid. He fastens one cuff around Micah's thin wrist, and opens one of the cabinets beneath the sink. With a quick tug, he jerks the bat's arm into it. There's the sound of clinking metal, and then the other cuff is fastened. He must be securing him against the plumbing. Micah resists none of this, fearing further retribution from the bear.
I've had a bit of a scorpion problem under there. Make sure not to get stung.
Brian's about to say something else, but stops as he spies something out the window.
One moment.
The bear hustles outside without further word. Micah clutches his stomach, saying nothing. Jenna doesn't either. The only sound is the quiet groaning of Leo, and the clinking of metal on metal as we fiddle with our restraints. At that moment, I hear a soft mumbling in the distance through the thin walls of the trailer. I freeze and hold my breath. It's a little ways off, but I'm almost positive that it's Duke. The high, wheezily whine mixed with the occasional smoker's cough is unmistakable. It's coming closer and I can start to make out what he's saying.
Because we're already fucked here. You think we can just let them go and it'll all be fine?
I don't know who he's talking to, but the sound of an accompanying heavy, lumbering step gives me an idea.
It's worth it, though, if we can figure out what the fuck is going on.
It sounds like they're right up against the trailer now. I can hear them walking around it, towards the small door on the right side of the kitchen.
Leo ain't saying shit yet, but I think it might be the otter. He's the one I seen last week.
The footsteps stop in front of the door and I listen hard, my heart pounding in my chest.
I hope you haven't done anything to him. Beyond what you've already done, that is.
Was protecting my property the first time. Haven't done nothing further.
Brian's uncharacteristically high-pitched voice sends a chill up my spine, my fur flaring out with it.
You bet your ass you haven't. If you do any of your fucked up shit to these kids...
I stop breathing, staring at the ends of my feet.
What I'm saying is we still got a chance to get out of this. What we've done is bad enough, but if we can get him to understand...
They stop talking, and that's when I can hear Brian's heavy, labored breath. I'm not breathing at all, worried that they'll be able to hear it even though they already know I'm here. I let it out with a gasp as the door suddenly swings open and Duke comes up the steps, looking around before spotting the lot of us.
Brian, you are one sick fuck.
I tense up as a massive shadow appears behind him, and it feels like the entire trailer tips a bit as Brian makes his way up the same steps. Brian's presence is so imposing and frightening that I don't even notice that Duke is now right next to me. I jump when he sets his hand on my left arm. I jerk my head to look at him, wide-eyed.
Hey, calm down. We ain't gonna hurt ya.
Brian chuckles and Duke shoots him a look. He turns his attention back to me, softening his expression, at least as much as he can with a scraggly, drug-fucked face.
We just needs to get some information from ya.
I open my mouth to speak, but all that comes out is a dry squeak. Brian chuckles again and makes his way to stand to my right. I cringe away from him and his stench of old sweat as he grins down at me with his yellow teeth. Despite all the others being here, the two seem especially focused on me.
Brian, get some fucking water.
Brian looks at Duke with a strange face before turning back to the kitchen.
Hey, don't worry about him. I know this thing.
Duke taps the metal collar around my neck with a finger.
Looks bad, but we just gotta hold you here for a bit.
The boys are queer. They like it. And the girlie is probably just like your wife.
Jenna is silent, daring not to provoke the two. Duke glares at him as Brian comes back from the kitchen with a ceramic mug.
You're queer too.
Brian visibly bristles and his face loses any of the sick humor it once had. Duke clears his throat.
Things have been happening here, and we want to find out why.
What?
Duke furrows his brows, like a kid trying to figure out something difficult.
You see, people ain't right in the head here.
No shit. Duke seems to immediately read my thought process because he holds up his hands and shakes his head.
Yeah, I know. What we're doing ain't exactly right in the head either.
Brian gives his dumb chuckle again, but I keep my face averted from him, partly because I really can't stand the smell.
But we're all a little fucked up here. What I'm talking about is something else, like what's been going on with the townsfolk. Bad dreams, strange behavior. Sound familiar?
I shift a little as I'm reminded about the past few days. Duke looks genuinely concerned. I look at the weasel's waistband and immediately see the handgun tucked into his pants there.
And I was hoping to stop it before any of this happened, but now...
Everything's gone to shit.
Brian finishes for him and I can feel him move closer to the platform I'm laying on? That's not right. Again, I avoid eye contact, not wanting to provoke him in any way.
Yep, and it's only gonna get worse.
Duke just looks at me, like that's all the information that I need.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I see a twitch of irritation on Duke's face and I hold my breath, and I get a drink.
I mean, what's happening out there?
Duke shakes his head.
What's happening everywhere?
Duke looks back at the window suddenly, his fur standing on end. I look too, but all I see are the leaves and branches, the late afternoon sun filtering through them. Duke's quiet for a while before he starts speaking again without turning around.
It happened to my granddaddy, my daddy. Now it's happening to me.
I close my eyes, wondering if Duke is just as crazy as Brian. If he is, I doubt he even has a clue what he's doing right now.
Dale's missing. Cynthia drove off into the desert.
Duke turns around to look back to Micah.
Saw your cat friend screeching about on the river road to the north. Heather? She had a little revolver, started pointing it at me and telling me to get out of my truck.
Micah's brow furrows slightly, but otherwise he says nothing.
Tried calming her down, but she wasn't having it. Even fired off a shot in the air before taking my keys and heading off toward her pops' place. Girl was on a warpath. Haunted. Thing is, we've all got something after us. Something bad. Won't let you leave when it starts.
What's after you?
I flinch as Brian speaks just above me, leaning down towards my face.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Bullshit!
I flinch again as Duke's concerned demeanor immediately drops away.
Why do you think we came to get you all?
He pauses, like I should actually know the answer.
Sans Micah here, who is already succumbing something fierce to his own demons.
Bitch! Micah mumbles from across the room, and I can see Duke's fur bristle. I feel myself starting to panic again with these two crazy hillbillies looming over my body. I don't know what... Duke slaps me and I gasp in shock.
Hey! You shut your fucking mouth before I stomp your jaw in.
Brian snaps back at Jenna before refocusing his attention on me.
I saw you hanging around this fucking town before you even got here. Late at night, lurking around.
I'm still cringing from the slap and I keep my eyes closed, as if not seeing any of this is going to make it stop.
And then once all your friends get here, all hell breaks loose. You think that's a fucking coincidence?
It's quiet for a moment and all I can hear is the rush of blood in my ears. Is this really happening? I feel Duke touch my arm again and I flinch in fear.
Hey.
I feel like he wants me to look at him, so I slowly open my eyes, tears spilling out as I do. The blurry shape of Duke dances in front of me.
I'm not saying you did it, or that you wanted it to happen.
I don't say anything because I still don't know what he's talking about, but I know I can't tell him that.
It's just that you gotta know something, anything, so that we can stop this.
Duke starts to pet my arm and I shiver. Brian is breathing heavily next to me, and a glance at him shows that his expression is more interested now, almost eager. I think about Leo, slumped over next to me. I want to cry out for help to him, though what could he do beyond get himself hurt more? I'm utterly helpless, squirming in my own skin. Duke still hasn't answered my question. It makes no sense that they'd go so far as to kidnap us. But why? Why didn't you just ask us? Why all of this? I lift my hands weakly, making the chains rattle. Duke's face darkens.
Because I've been asking Leo all week what the fuck you guys are doing and he wouldn't say shit. Saw you all snooping around the Hendricks' place and he attacked me when I confronted him. You just stood there looking out the window, with that same condescending look you bunch have always had.
He glances to each of us. Duke stops petting my arm and scratches behind his head.
And, someone told me that you would know.
I stare at him. Who?
Someone I know. And it makes sense. Something bad happens, and if you don't fix it, it won't stop coming after you.
I shut my eyes and almost sob.
Says they know, and I thought it had to be Leo or you, considering what we've been seeing these past few weeks.
Duke pauses.
Or maybe one of your other friends.
He looks over toward Jenna. She's silent.
I don't know what you're talking about!
I wait for another slap, but it doesn't come. I open my eyes again and Duke is looking back out the window.
We're kind of protecting you, too.
I stare at the back of his head.
Things are getting worse out there, and if we don't figure something out soon, we're all gonna die.
Duke's voice is dead and distant. Brian, though, touches my other arm and I gasp, shrinking away. He's smirking down at me, looking at my stomach. Or crotch. Somewhere around there.
Brian, stop.
Duke is turned back around, looking over me at the bear.
We're not getting anywhere right now, and I gotta get to town hall.
Even though Duke is the one that hit me, I'm terrified at the thought of us being left alone again with Brian. Duke sees my face.
Don't worry, Chase. Even though you're lying to us, I don't plan to let this pervert have his way with you.
Brian snorts.
Brian knows what will happen if he does.
Duke gives Brian a cold, callous stare, and this time Brian doesn't give his stupid grin back.
But you better fall in line and think real hard about what you're really doing here, Chase. 'Cause I'll be back.
Duke heads for the door, turning to look over his shoulder.
Just feed them and make sure they don't escape. That's it. And I'll need your keys.
What?
Brian snarls.
Heather took my truck, remember? You'll get it back.
Brian seethed through his large black nostrils, and I'm strangely reminded of Leo reacting to Jenna's chiding earlier. With a grumble, he fists around in his sweatpants pocket. He takes a brass key from his keychain and pushes it into Duke's outstretched palm.
Thank you.
And with that, Duke briskly disappears out the door, a golden flash of late afternoon light illuminating the dim trailer. Brian and I listened to the weasel's soft, anxious footsteps recede into the distance. As soon as the sound is gone, Brian stands up. I turn my head in time to see him whirl around and smash his fist into the wall. I jump as much as I can on my restraints before he does it again, this time slamming both of his fists against the wall. Fucking faggots! The bear shoves his remaining keys into a drawer on the other side of the kitchen. He exhales loudly, staring at the wall and muttering something I can't quite make out. Brian remains motionless as he does so, unmoving as the minutes pass by. It's unnerving, but a welcome respite from the aggression being taken out on us. There's a window in the corner of the living room area that's mainly covered by an old wooden bookcase. There's no books in it, just mainly stacks of ashtrays, empty plastic bottles, and old appliance manuals. However, the top two shelves are littered with little knickknacks. It takes me a second, but I actually recognize a few of them as prizes from Southwestern Adventures. I'm reminded of the stuffed griffin I have smushed in my suitcase back at the motel. If only we would have packed up and gone when we had the chance. There's some other keepsakes stuffed back there as well. Lots of stuff from the Blue Diamond Casino on the reservation. Travel cases, poker chips, canvas satchels, and even a mug with a smiling blue diamond and Masada War Chief headdress. It reads Chief Daddy in big, bold lettering. Is Brian a father? The idea seems unlikely. Brian stands on his tiptoes and peers out at the little bit of window still visible over the top of the bookcase. There's a faint popping sound in the distance, like 4th of July fireworks cracking off. I can't imagine why anyone would be celebrating at a time like this. They're probably not fireworks. Brian flinches, a soft frown crossing his burly features. Huh. He hums to himself, brow furrowed as he takes a seat in the faded corduroy recliner, turning it in place to face us. His eyes shift over to me for a moment, and it's like he wants me to say something. I swallow, my mouth dry as a bone, as I begin to speak. Do you think those were gunshots?
Worried about your friends?
Yeah.
Don't be. You should be the worried ones.
He smiles a big, toothy grin, composed of what few teeth he has remaining. Oh. There's something familiar about his face now. My mind flashes with images of that smile peering at me from the end of my bed. Could it have been one of the countless night terrors I'd seen when my body was still frozen with sleep? Unable to move, just like I am now. Except this is real. His gaze shifts to the rack and mirror beside me, and he's quiet for a while. He suddenly smacks his lips.
Keith. He truly was the best of us. Got me wondering what he'd do if he was around now.
Let us go.
Micah's quick-fire response elicits a solemn grunt from Brian.
You know damn well that's what he'd do. Golden rule.
Ah, so I should hit you with a wrench too then? Got one around here somewhere.
The bat promptly stops talking as the bear starts looking around the cluttered mess that is his trailer. Brian eventually stops, smirking to himself in this strange, nasally fashion. Fucking psycho.
So you want to talk about Keith, huh? Well, alright.
Micah doesn't speak this time, letting the bear mull about.
First, you gotta understand that I see things. I reckon everybody here does, just a lot of folk don't like to admit it, or don't have it as bad. When I see things, I see it, smell it, feel it, hear it, taste it. All 6 senses and what have you. When I was a kid in Peyton, I didn't see shit, even though I had a pretty fucked up childhood. My mom left when I was 6 because my dad was a piece of shit, but you know she's a piece of shit for leaving me with him. Anyway, you know where my dad told me she'd gone?
No one says anything until Brian turns to look back down at Micah expectantly.
I don't know.
Brian cackles and it sends a chill up my spine.
That aliens had taken her.
I press myself deeper into the wall, wishing I could just disappear in between the wood paneling.
I think he must have been drunk or high or both. But it stuck with me, you know?
I look away, trying to make myself look small and avoid any unnecessary eye contact with him.
Then, when I was a teenager, I got myself a boyfriend. Well, more of a fuck buddy. We kinda hated each other.
I can feel him looking between Leo and I now, and I have a feeling the bear is aware of our former relationship.
At least, it felt like that sometime. The fucker wouldn't leave me alone, no matter how much he was saying I disappointed him. Gotta be my best self or whatever. He talked too much, but he was a good fuck and the only faggot I knew, so I came here every other week or so to fuck him. Things got a little better between us, and he convinced me to help him out with restoring this old bar off of 65. It was a complete shithole, but he loved his vices. Booze, drugs, fucking, and peddling all that was like a dream to him. But then something weird happened on one of my trips out here when he wasn't around. I remember the moon was red that night, because of the forest fires out west. And I kept looking at it, and that's when I saw a flying saucer, like one straight out of a cartoon with lights and a dome thing on top. I couldn't believe it, but there it fucking was, floating through the sky. And you know, even though it looked stupid as fuck, I knew. It knew I saw it, and it was fucking evil. I just knew it.
Brian finally looks down at me again.
That night and almost every night after, I'd wake up and couldn't move and aliens would be around my bed. And there was this one alien that I knew was my mom. She didn't look like my mom, she looked like an alien. But I just knew it was her. And she'd do these things to me. Sometimes to my mouth and eyes and nose. But usually to my dick. Torture me. And it felt fucking real.
Brian chuckles, still staring at Leo and I.
It fucked me up good. And I blamed my boyfriend for it. For bringing me to Echo. Because I was sure that's where the evil came from. I outed him that year. Skull fucked him when his mom was still home and got him caught. So he had to leave town because of it.
Micah's lightly fuzzed face seems to lose some color to it at that, his wide eyes shifting to the linoleum beneath him. The massive bear shakes his head.
Didn't stop the dreams, though. So, he just left us all behind then? Oh no.
Brian straightens up in his chair, it creaking loudly.
He stuck around the res on account of him being Maseda and all. Found him at a gay bar.
What does that mean?
It means I have an idea.
Brian stands up from his seat and disappears into one of the back bedrooms. He calls back to us.
Something to pass the time with. Was saving this for Clint, but he's been keeping scarce lately.
He comes back with what looks like a step stool, a medical satchel, and a whip? Upon closer inspection, it's not a whip, but a noose with little bits of metal embedded around the edges. Razor blades. A noose with fucking razor blades. What the fuck? Brian gets to work tying it up to a conspicuous hook on the kitchen ceiling. He's incredibly quick with tying the knot, like he's done this 1,000 times before. I can feel my heart pounding in my ears, each blade on the noose glinting with what little light there is in the trailer. I try to crane my neck to look at Jenna, but I'm still having trouble seeing her. Brian smiles down at Micah, bending down and taking the bat's cuffs off just as quickly.
What the fuck are you doing? Shut up, it'll be okay. Be calm, don't struggle.
Brian's voice reminds me of children's show presenters, with a squeaky, reassuring cadence. The context of his words makes it deeply unsettling, and I struggle against my collar restraint whenever he's turned away. I have to get out of here. Brian sits down the stool squarely beneath where the noose is hanging.
Step up onto the stool. You're short enough so this will actually work.
You're fucking crazy!
Micah reels back away from him, but Brian grabs him by the hand. He starts bending it inward, and the bat squeals in pain.
Okay, you either do what I say, or I'm gonna start breaking every joint in your body, alright?
Micah continues to shriek, finally wrenching free after nodding.
Okay!
Put your head through the noose.
I can see the turmoil in Micah's face. 1,000 fight-or-flight responses running through his head.
The inside of the noose itself don't got any blades. Just the outside so you can't be grabbing it.
Micah stares through the hole in front of him.
Do it!
He's about to grab for the bat's hand again, but Micah shoves his head through just in time after stepping up on the stool.
I'm in!
Good.
The bear reaches up and tightens the noose more firmly around the bat's neck, looking proud of himself as he does so. He cinches it hard until it's clear the bat is struggling to breathe. With a smile, he reaches down and tugs off one of the legs of the little step stool. Brian chuckles to himself as the bat teeters, Micah nearly kicking the stool away. He just barely manages to keep himself upright, with the tip of his toes catching the edge. His cheeks flare as more of his weight is having to be held aloft by his neck, the strain causing his neck veins to bulge. He gasps like a fish for breath, swaying his hips from one side to the other to get a more solid standing position. I can see him resisting the urge to grab the noose, an act that would surely strip his fingers to the bone. Brian, meanwhile, chuckles to himself, tickled deeply by the display.
There you go.
Brian is turned away from me now, but even from this angle it's clear he's rubbing himself through his sweatpants. I'm petrified, wanting to scream out to make him stop, but not daring to make a sound. This is what Duke was warning Brian not to do, and he did it anyway. I close my eyes, praying to see that weasel again to put a stop to all this.
Hey, don't think I forgot about you all.
When I open my eyes again, he's looking directly at me.
Well, you two at least. I mean, given a choice of a bunch of guys and one girl, what kind of queer would pick the girly?
He says the word queer with distaste, the bear beginning to reach into his little satchel. He looks to Jenna as he pulls out what looks like a long spool of string.
The others tell me you were a bit of a bitch anyway. At least, that's what your brother said.
I keep expecting Jenna to start speaking, talking him down. Full psychoanalysis mode like all those thriller movies. But right now, she is completely silent. Leo stirs slightly beside me, mumbling something incoherent. Brian has scissors now, and he kneels down in front of us. I begin to feel faint as he points the edge of them toward me with a smile. Instead of cutting me, he begins snipping along the side of my shorts and underwear, cutting up to the waistband.
What are you doing?
Micah teeters in the kitchen, letting out a blubbering, choking sound as he struggles for breath.
Saw you a few weeks ago. You had no eyes. Heard you talking to the empty rail yard. Saying that you two need to stay close. Thinking I should oblige that request.
What? The eyeless chase. The thing we saw earlier? Leo stirs some as I shout, shifting slightly as Brian is the same to his pant leg.
Don't worry, I won't get your bits out.
He reaches into his little medical bag and pulls out a suturing needle.
I think you're supposed to shave the fur before you start doing this, but oh well.
No, please, you don't need to do this. That thing you saw, it wasn't me. I've seen it too.
Brian blinks, canting his head slightly.
Well, I figured that much, that he wasn't real. You still have your eyes for now, and that goatee.
He's pushing our legs together now, and my heart feels like it's in my throat, my vision starting to blur.
Don't squirm now, it returns to joint breaking time. And I can always stitch other things together.
Oh God, no. The needle hits me first, in my mid-thigh. I cry out, squeezing my fists against my chest. I want to deck him, punch him, do anything to make him stop. I yell so loud I slobber onto the front of my shirt, tears once again welling in my eyes. I can feel the metal pierce through my skin, far too deep as it tears through muscle and tugs it back out again. Leo begins to writhe slightly as it goes through his leg, though he doesn't wake.
That's one.
Stop!
I start to feel faint as blood pools from the new holes in my thigh, though the needle re-entering promptly wakes me back up.
Fuck!
2. Stop.
Jenna speaks from the corner of the room, her voice unlike I've ever heard her before. Quiet. So much so that I don't know if Brian even heard her.
3.
Micah gasps, wobbling erratically as blood drips from his left hand. He must have gripped the rope for a second and cut himself.
Don't fall, kid.
Brian calls to Micah before looking back. He has a lurid gaze as he stares directly into my eyes, pushing the needle in again. It's so deep I'm sure it scrapes the bone, and it's like my whole body has been lit on fire. Snot dribbles down my nose. I can't fucking take it anymore. Brian keeps counting. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Leo's writhing has gotten more intense, and each tug of his legs spreads the puncture wounds more. I can't take it. Something begins to move in the corner of the room, in the closet beside the bedroom. I can't tell if it's just my blurred vision, or whether the door is actually opening. In the kitchen, the stool tips over, and Micah is suddenly dangling freely. Oh God! More choked gurgles escape the increasingly red-faced bat. His arms begin to flail, wildly at first, and then in a more coordinated rhythm. It takes me a moment to realize he's batting his wings. He flaps as hard as he can, and finally it looks like he manages to get a gulp of air. His hovering is erratic, never enough to keep him completely suspended. Brian peers over his shoulder, eyebrows raised slightly. Help him! Brian ignores her. Would you look at that? He can fly. The exertion is clearly taxing Micah, and he's still having trouble breathing. His face continues to turn an unnatural hue. He can't keep this up. Help him! Out of the corner of my eye, the closet door shifts open further. There's something inside. Someone. They're a reddish-white color, half cloaked in shadow. Eyes wide, mouth open. It moves like there's a strobe light behind it, its motions choppy and unnatural. It's like it's not moving at all, but rather a series of images projected in front of my eyes, changing every second. And each second it gets closer. It looks to be as tall as Brian, impossibly splendor, with arms and legs that look warped and burnt. It has no eyes, no mouth, just holes. Next thing I know, it's in the kitchen, and Micah just drops. The bat hits the floor with a heavy thud, the cut noose still around his neck. Brian sees it now, too. He reels back just as it begins to approach him. "They're real!" is all he can say before the bear is yanked about with immense, violent force, his body bending like a flicked rubber band. The contents of his pockets, one of his pant legs, and a small chunk of flesh smack against the kitchen wall. The rest of him goes flying out the window, along with the figure. My mind immediately thinks back to when I was a kid. I'd seen plenty of stuff, lots of horrible things. But the psychiatrist had said that that was normal, that sometimes kids hallucinate. Not like this, though. There's glass scattered across the stained carpet. Bloodstains dapple the turquoise polka-dotted drapes, swaying slightly in the new breeze that comes through the broken window. This is real? Right? Past all reasonable doubt. It has to be. The shock of the situation had eclipsed the pain in my leg, though that brief respite fades quickly. It's wretched and niggling, like being stung by 20 little bees every couple of seconds. Rivulets of Leo and I's blood pools together and runs between our connected thighs. I writhe against my restraints, my head spinning and heart pounding. Every base animalistic neuron in my brain is firing to flee the situation, to make the throbbing stop and to just find safety. But there's nothing I can do but gasp for breath, one eye on the window and the other on the struggling, bleeding silhouette of Micah. My vision blurs, and when it refocuses, the bat is up on his knees, yellow eyes wide and bloodshot. He says something. His voice is high-pitched and quaking, utterly indiscernible. At least to me, right now. He scrambles on his hands and knees, coughing and wheezing while yanking open several of Brian's kitchen drawers. Dirty silverware, cooking utensils, and faded yellow receipts shower the floor. The ruckus is immense, and I'm sure the thing outside hears it. That is, if it's even capable of hearing. He pulls another drawer completely out of its socket, and an assortment of bottle openers, chip clips, and twist ties clatters forth. Panting out ragged breaths, his fingers grab something glinting in silver from the new pile. His eyes widen. Keys. For a moment, his gaze trails to the door, then back to us. He coughs again, swearing some obscenity that I can't fully make out. Scampering along from the kitchen to the other side of the room, he begins using the key on Jenna's restraint. There's a satisfying click, and I can hear Jenna gasp.
Thank you,
she whispers. Micah wastes no time, moving back into my sightline for a moment to reach Leo beside me. You... Leo moans, seemingly aware of the bat's presence as a large paw reaches out to touch the bat's soft mane of white fur. Micah stops for a moment, blinking some at the still definitely out of it wolf. Leo's arm goes limp again, the bat exhaling a coarse breath, trying to steady his own shaking hands so that he can unlock the wolf's restraint. Jenna quickly heads to the kitchen, grabbing a knife from the torn-out cutlery drawer.
I'll get you out of this in a sec. Just don't squirm, okay?
She looks at me, her turquoise eyes wide and glistening. I'll be fine, Leo murmurs. Jenna doesn't even look at him as she brings the blade between her thighs. With a little slice, she manages to cut through the first stitch, and a fresh runnel of blood leaks from the puncture points. It's as if the wound is hissing at me, my ears ringing as I clutch my fists against my chest. Don't scream. Don't scream. Ah! I whimper as the knife nicks the second, but doesn't quite break the string. Instead, it tugs up, widening the piercing and tearing at the skin. Leo stirs, his fists clenching as his half-lidded eyes try to focus on Jenna. Ugh! He bares his fangs briefly, trying to stand up. This pulls harder at the stitching, and I can't tell what will give first, the stitches or the flesh on my legs. I cry out between grit teeth, Jenna trying to pin the wolf back down.
Stop moving! You're only making it worse!
Jenna tries to cut the stitching faster now. She gets one rung, 2, 3. Fuck off of me! I look down and see that Jenna's blade tip had stuck into the wolf's thigh, even more blood trickling from the fresh wound.
Just be still!
I've never heard Jenna so tense. Leo only writhes more, reeling against his restraints with such ferocity that Micah can't undo the lock.
God, just fucking give it to me!
The bat stops fiddling with the lock and extends a hand out to Jenna, the Finnick turning to look at him. She doesn't move to give him the knife, but she does loosen her grip. Micah doesn't hesitate and plucks it from her with the deftness of a pickpocket. Gingerly, he places the flat of his free hand against Leo's chest, and with the other, makes a quick slice between our legs in one motion. The pressure keeping us together is suddenly gone, and I feel I can freely pull my leg away from his. The pain is still immense, but nowhere near as bad.
You are so fucking lucky.
I look up at the small bat as he moves to unlock Leo's restraint. If I'm lucky, I certainly don't feel like it. Yeah? So are you. The bat lets out a sharp exhale as Leo is freed. Surprisingly, he stands right up, albeit less than steadily. It's still not entirely clear that he knows where he is, blood still running down the side of his leg. Micah takes a cautionary step back, though the dazed wolf doesn't appear to be outwardly hostile toward him. In fact, the two meet each other's gazes for a moment and Leo sobers slightly. What? He mumbles, bracing himself with a large arm against the wall. As Micah shifts his freeing efforts to me, Jenna nimbly steps around the broken glass and makes her way to Brian's fridge. She pulls open the door, tugging out various foodstuffs and plastic bags. Finally, she pulls out several bottles of water and hurries back over. Click. I gasp, holding my throat as I jerk my head forward. Big gulps of air into my lungs with a refreshing sensation unlike anything I've ever felt. My whole body buzzes with a mixture of pain and relief. Jenna quickly hands me a bottle of water and I don't hesitate to start chugging it. Well, I try to, and then I realize the cap is still on. After rectifying my error, I can see clearly the frazzled look in Jenna's eyes. Her usual cool demeanor, gone, and then its place a deeply unsettled visage that matches how I feel. She briefly looks off to her side, toward the broken window, then back to me.
Chase,
Micah takes 2 of her water bottles, giving one to Leo and one for himself. That thing... Jenna nods.
Yeah.
Was that the thing you mentioned to me? On the hike? Her fur bristles, the fox finding the notion incredibly uncomfortable.
I don't know what that was. Something the authorities will investigate later, I suppose. So I wasn't fucking seeing shit? That really was some burnt motherfucker leaping out of that sick fuck's closet?
Micah squeezes the bottle, splashing his face with the cold water.
Must have been 7 feet tall, at least.
A burned man? Is that all he was? Just another victim of Brian's cruel tortures stashed away until now? Do you think he's still outside?
Maybe?
Jenna responds in a hushed tone.
I doubt Brian's in much of a threatening state, though.
Yeah. We all seem to be fixated on the broken window, though none of us are jumping at the chance to investigate more closely. No one except for Leo. I glance over and see the big wolf stumbling forward, arms outstretched. His movements are jittery, robotic, his maw hanging open slightly. His eyes still aren't fully open, yet he grasps the windowsill and peers into the darkness. He stays there, motionless. Seconds pass, at least 10, and finally he turns to face us. Never seen that before, Leo mumbles.
You see anything?
Yeah. Micah stares at him, bug-eyed.
Well, what do you fucking see?
Red. Micah sets his water bottle down, picking back up his knife and the contents of Brian's pockets.
Alright, fuck this. We're getting out of here. If that person we totally all just saw wanted to do us in, it would have done so. I just want to get a car, get some distance from this place, call the cops on a payphone.
He furrows his brow at something on the ground, before picking it up and shoving it into his shorts.
And spend the rest of the night cooped up in one of those 24-hour pancake houses where the waitstaff is always around to watch you.
Carl. Gotta save him. Leo blurts this out like a spoken belch, his disoriented eyes seemingly swimming in their sockets as he looks at no one in particular. The notion swells up a knot in my stomach. First fear, then guilt. Carl had been subjected to this for days. And maybe he knows more about the thing in the closet.
That's a job for the police.
She says this with an initial reassuring tone, though she falters after a moment.
Oh, those gunshots earlier. We would have heard police sirens by now. I'm assuming the phone service and internet is still down. So, let's find a fucking car then? We drive to Peyton, rat out those murderer-abiding fucks I called friends, and never look back.
Jenna sighs, closing her eyes for a moment, then nodding.
Yeah. That's as sound of an idea as any. Let's go. I'm not seeing any car keys here. Pretty sure Duke has his ride.
Gotta save Carl. Now. Leo interjects, and Jenna just looks at him, dumbfounded.
Oh, go right ahead, Leo.
She speaks up, gesturing toward the door flippantly.
We'll be in Peyton. You go right ahead and tell us how that goes,
Leo blinks slowly, before again slowly meandering to the door. Wait, what? I try to stop him, wincing at the pain in my leg.
Oh, Jesus.
I manage to grab his fur, and that staggers him enough to stop for a moment.
I wasn't serious.
Leo, please, come on. We'll stick together and get this taken care of. Carl. I can feel him pulling away, so I try to think of something to get him to stop. Leo, man, we need you. I need you. I squeeze his paw, briefly, just enough to show him I'm here as his eyes close once again. Like a lost child, he squeezes back. The physical contact feels nice, though after being stitched to him, I'm relieved when he lets go.
You two, good to move?
I take a tentative step, and Jenna takes me by the arm in case I fall. The pain is dizzying, and I have the overwhelming urge to just down a bottle of ibuprofen and crawl in a corner. But I definitely can still walk. I'll manage. Jenna smiles faintly at me.
I'll help him.
Leo, in all his stupid glory, says nothing as he pulls open the front door and steps outside into the dark. Micah steps up beside us, his skinny arms folded tightly over his chest.
Okay, urgent care for him, and then the pancake house.
That was entirely too long of a recording for me. Next time, we will pick up on the final day of Jenna's route, and the final day of this series as a whole. Thanks for watching so far, everybody. I appreciate it. I'll see you all next time. Bye.